Next headline, New Zealand must pull its weight on AUKUS. A likely kingmaker in next week's New Zealand election will push the new government to join Australia, Britain and the US in their defence technology alliance, warning potential coalition partners that their country cannot give up a future with AUKUS in fear of China. Well, we may have a little clue as to why they're not currently pulling their weight with AUKUS. Here was the current Prime Minister today saying he doesn't even think Xi Jinping's a dictator.
Do you agree with US President Joe Biden's assessment that Xi Jinping is a dictator?
No, and the form of government that China has is a matter for the Chinese people.
Oh, yeah. Well, whether or not he's been crushing them underfoot repeatedly and, invading their privacy and treating them like serfs, that's a matter for them. I must correct myself, that wasn't today. It was recently, but it wasn't today. I mean, please, these guys have already sworn off nukes. One wonders what kind of help they'd be anyway. They're not exactly a militarily beefed up country.
Do they even have a military these days? Didn't they just
Really
disarm themselves
sure.
pretty much? And just,
There's a couple of paper planes. And,
Although the haka would be useful. I mean, the Chinese would just be like, what in the actual world is going on here?
I can describe New Zealand's defence strategy in one word.
What's that?
Australia. They're banking on the fact that if anything bad happens, don't worry, the Aussies will come, the
swim
Yanks
over,
will sweep down. Yeah. They sucked up to China for financial gain, signing free trade agreements, thinking foolishly that China are modernising. And with modernisation, all those communist ideologies, they just sort of drift away.
Yeah.
How naive could you possibly be? And now they want to come running back to us. Should we let them in?
I mean, it was just last night we were talking about the fact that our own PM can't visit there in his RAAF plane because they're like, they'll bug it. Like, they will absolutely tune in to whatever technological stuff you've got going on in that plane and be able to commandeer it. Last but not least, on the front page of The Australian, all power stays with Parliament. Parliament could limit the Voice's engagement with executive government by ensuring it does not enjoy unfettered access to public officials, cabinet ministers, or the Governor-General, according to a key defence of the advisory body made by one of the nation's eminent legal thinkers. Well, I think that is pretty weak. I mean, of course they could, but we all know they won't. What would be the use of creating this body and then being like, you don't have access to ministers.
No, you do.
You don't have access. It's like, oh, please. Okay, besides, Linda Burney already told the press club that she'd have their inbox full on day one. That's a direct quote. So we all know where their actual work's coming from. Independent body, my peach.
No, she was saying that. She was saying it was going to be about housing, about jobs, about education.
Yeah, it's all about listening, and she had a list for them.
That's right, about health. She's saying that's right. But she's saying the exact same thing. She's saying if they start, because people were saying all sorts of crazy stuff like, oh, they're going to want to have a say on the nuclear submarine build, or they're going to want to have a say on interest rates. And Linda Burney simply said, well, no, they're not going to want to do that, but even if they try that, we've got complete power to actually determine what they can do. And it is there in the amendment. This is what I can't understand. People are so confused by. It says in the amendment the Parliament's got complete control over all the functions, the powers and the composition of the Voice. So who's in it, what it can do and how it can do it. That's it. And now this is the most recent Chief Justice of the High Court. This is the most senior legal mind.
Well, we know the High Court is split on this.
But isn't the problem where...
Well, the current High Court can't offer a decision at all.
No, but in terms of their opinions on the Voice, there is no consensus.
Former High Court justices have offered different ones, but the vast majority, including the most recent Chief Justice, there's no other Chief Justice who has said that it's a dangerous thing. And Robert French is the most recent Chief Justice. So he's the highest High Court authority who can offer an opinion on this.
Putting aside whether his opinion is correct or incorrect, isn't it emblematic of the problems the Yes campaign have had that, 10 days out from the referendum?
Yeah.
And we're still having these statements and these arguments about what it will and what it won't do. No wonder it's tanking in the polls when, as I said, a week and a half out, they're still trying to work out what can it do and what can't it do.
Well, he's actually come out and said that before, and again, and then someone says, "Oh, but my neighbour's dog says differently," and people say, "Oh, so
he has absolutely no idea at this point, as none of us do, as much as we'd really like to. He has no idea what they're actually going to legislate, what this body will be capable of, who it will have access to, etc., and so on. So I would have thought someone who I don't doubt is a titan of intelligence. You don't get to be a chief without it. I'm just surprised that he would.
But that will be decided by the Parliament. That's exactly what he's saying. So the legislation from the Parliament.
They might, perhaps.
But even as
the Parliament has the power to do.
Even as a High Court Chief Justice, formerly. In this article, he says it's improbable, quote unquote, that if the Parliament doesn't properly consider the Voice's recommendations, it's improbable it'll end up in court. But I mean, you can't have improbabilities.
You don't know what's being legislated.
You need certainty, don't you?
But even if it ends up in court, the High Court will just throw it out because it says right here in the Constitution that Parliament's got control over you.